Good morning and welcome everyone to today's announcement. For reporters on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You will be limited to one question and one follow-up. Now I will hand it over to Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Sheila Malcolmson.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be joining you from the territory of the Algonquin-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. I'm pleased to be joined here today virtually by Minister Bowen Ma, MLA for Vancouver, North Van Lonsdale, and Minister of State for Infrastructure. Also Susan Climie, Executive Director of the Looking Glass Foundation for Eating Disorders, Kate Grantham, Peer Support Volunteer for Looking Glass, and James Summer, Victoria's 2021 Youth Poet Laureate. We are here today to talk about a life-threatening mental health and physical health illness that is often misunderstood, an illness that is tragically on the rise due to COVID-19 and the effects of the pandemic. That disease is eating disorders. Today we're taking important steps for people living with eating disorders and their families to provide better access to the vital services that they need and deserve. Approximately 1 million Canadians struggle with eating disorders, which can affect people of any age or gender. People who share their stories tell me that they encounter stigma and confusion about their illness, even blame, which can prevent people from accessing the help that they need. People living with eating disorders also tell me that as much as they need improved access to medical care, they also value peer support, which gives them an opportunity to connect with someone who understands and offers empathy because they've been there too. Being part of a community is so important. And that really struck a chord with me because we believe no one experiencing eating disorders or any mental illness should have to go through that journey alone. Our commitment as a government is to keep building with people with lived and living experience the mental health and addictions system of care that supports services that meet the diverse needs of people across the province. And that is why we are here today. Today, we are providing $6.6 million to expand eating disorder care and to increase access to service to virtual peer support services in every health authority across the province. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. Today we are providing $6.6 million to expand eating disorder care and increase access to virtual peer support services in every health authority in British Columbia. This means people living with eating disorders and their families, including those in rural and remote communities, will have better access to the supports to help them on their recovery journey. The pandemic has put immense strain on people in British Columbia. People living with or recovering from eating disorders are no exception. Our partners on the front line are telling us that the number and severity of cases has reached an all-time high due to the anxiety and the social distancing effects of the pandemic. This new funding will provide the boost necessary to ensure that people don't have to wait so long before they get the care they need. $6 million over 3 years is being invested through Budget 2021 to hire more staff in every health authority to expand access to eating disorder services and supports. An additional $530,000 is for the Looking Glass Foundation for Eating Disorders to enhance their virtual peer support program over the next 3 years. This investment complements an additional $87,000 grant to support the Looking Glass Foundation's ongoing work. I'm grateful to Looking Glass for being a caring community, one that embeds lived experience at the heart of its service, offering hope and healing to many people at a time of some despair. The work that they wholeheartedly take on is a vital part of our government's vision to build that comprehensive system of mental health and addiction supports that people need and deserve. Now, Budget 2021 made a historic $500 million investment in mental health and addiction support, the largest ever investment in British Columbia's history. This budget will rapidly advance the vision laid out in our 10-year plan, Pathway to Hope. That's a vision where every British Columbian can get connected to the services that they need and deserve. It meets them where they're at and helps them get on the path to a brighter future. I'm confident that with the continued efforts of our care providers, family, people with lived experience, and our community partners and service providers, we will get there. But we've got a lot more work to do. Today is such a good day on that journey. I now welcome my colleague, Bowen Ma, Minister for State and, I now welcome my colleague, Bowen Ma, Minister of State for Infrastructure and MLA for North Vancouver, Lonsdale, to say a few words. Bowen's courageously shared her story about living with an eating disorder. And Bowen, thank you for your honesty. I know your words have had impact on people already, and I'm so grateful for your willingness to step forward and share that story again today.
Thank you so much, Minister. It is an honor to serve the people of British Columbia from the territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. That's where I come to you live from my home constituency of North Vancouver. Mental health challenges impact far more British Columbians than many people would care to admit, and the pandemic has certainly not made this easier. Among the deadliest of these mental health illnesses are eating disorders. When I first publicly shared in 2019 my own personal experience living with a past eating disorder, I had not anticipated the impact that it would have on others. What followed my story was story after story from other people who had never spoken the words out loud to anyone, who were revealing their own hidden experiences with eating disorders, showing one another and others who had not yet spoken out still that there were others like them who have or continue to struggle. Still now, 2 years later, I still hear from people who tell me quietly that they too have suffered from this often invisible challenge, and who add that they have yet to tell anyone else in their lives, but how much it meant to them to know that they were not alone. But when the first Eating Disorder Awareness Week rolled around during my first year as a sitting MLA, I did not at that time speak about my experiences. I was terrified of becoming known only as the one with an eating disorder. Like for many, that fear of speaking out came from the crushing weight of shame and stigma, which feeds off of judgmental assumptions, misunderstanding, and an attribution of fault or moral failing where none exists. This stigma isn't just unfair or unpleasant, it kills people. It kills people who live with addictions. It kills people who live with depression. It kills people who live with an eating disorder. And the actions that our government is taking to expand services and supports for people with disordered eating will save lives. $6.6 million to increase access to enhanced eating disorder services across the province will provide a vital expansion of care at a time when the number and severity of cases of this life-threatening illness has reached an all-time high. And virtual peer support provided through the Looking Glass Foundation will help to break through the most isolating elements of living with these struggles. Now, as with all things that our government is tackling, there is more to do. However, today's announcement is a much needed and valuable step forward in an area that has left so many individuals and families feeling helpless and at a loss for far too long. Thank you, Minister Malcolmson, for this work, and thank you to everyone who has joined us today for this announcement.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'm very grateful for your courage sharing your personal story, talking about the harm of stigma, and speaking in the way that you have does help us break through. It's so important for others to hear. To know that someone in your own family might not know what you're struggling with just tells us again how important it is to combat stigma and support families and those suffering mental illness, to support them together. I now welcome Susan Climie, Executive Director of the Looking Glass Foundation, and one of the peer support volunteers for Looking Glass, Kate Grantham. We are so grateful for your work, and we welcome you describing more to people that are online about your peer support program. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning. We are joining you from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Thank you, Minister Malcolmson. No words can express our gratitude for your understanding and your deep compassion for those who struggle. Thank you to you and your team at the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, and to the people in the Ministries of Health and Finance and elsewhere who have supported this investment. We also want to acknowledge Minister Ma for your kindness and openness, and for being a quiet confidant for so many people and for us. This is really wonderful news for the eating disorder community in BC. And I believe that everyone in this community has two common goals, which have been spoken of by the two ministers: to eliminate the stigma of this mental illness and to provide care to whomever needs it throughout the province. 2022 will be the 20th anniversary of Looking Glass Foundation, and we look ahead with hope and optimism that this funding from our BC government can be leveraged to enhance and expand our services in the province. We want to thank the hundreds of volunteers and donors who enable our work, and the hundreds of people who trust us to support them on their healing journeys. We can now look forward to working closely with our provincial government. The ministry, the individuals and families we support, and Looking Glass Foundation's board, volunteers, and donors can all walk together in partnership. Along with our colleagues in the health authorities and beyond, we have so much to do, and we are grateful to be on this path together. Thank you so much.
I'd like to say thank you to Minister Malcolmson. As someone who has suffered from an eating disorder, I know firsthand how lonely, disorienting, and frightening it can be. Even in recovery, when I was surrounded by medical professionals, I still felt so alone. I know how it feels to desperately need support, but feeling not able to ask for it. Recovery is a hard and long process, and it took me several difficult years to be able to live my life without an eating disorder plaguing my every decision and action. Once I felt more established in my recovery, I began to speak out about my experiences, and I would have friends come to me for support or advice. I felt like what I had gone through gave me a good perspective on how I could help others navigate their journey, and that's what led me to volunteer with Looking Glass. As a peer support volunteer, I have experienced and witnessed how these programs can change and even save lives. Having a trained peer to share their journey with has been invaluable for the participants I work with, and every day I am in awe of their bravery and their strength. I cannot stress enough that these programs are so important. Recovering from my eating disorder was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I can confidently say that it was one of the most important things I've ever done for myself. And I feel honored that my experience can help others with their recovery. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Minister Malcolmson and her team for recognizing the vital need for eating disorder care and for giving me the opportunity to share a small part of my story today.
Thank you so much, Kate and Susan. Susan, for your leadership, and Kate in particular for being a voice to so much of the work that we are trying to support, that we're working hard to support, is that peer connection and experience. People with lived experience have a particular power, and I'm so grateful to you, Kate, for using that for the benefit, right? We are honored now to hear James Summer, Victoria's 2021 Youth Poet Laureate. They will share a personal piece with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. Has been a great opportunity, and so I have written this poem just for the occasion. This is a subject I care deeply about, so I thank everyone who has put this event together. Thank you. Walking myself through recovery. This experience is like crossroads in a forest, and all my body tells me to do is go back into the past. And to fix this from the beginning, it's too late for that though. So I learned to pick myself up with gentle hands and lift myself into the safety of health. The trail is not easy, and yet how strange of a walk this has been, to hate the vessel I have been placed in and then learn to relove myself. Every thought feels fresh, and as the seasons change, I understand what it is like to live again. As I walk deeper through the forest, through recovery, I look back over my shoulder and catch a glimpse of my old self. I realize how much time I wasted befriending obsession. Therefore, I continue forward. This is letting go of what I didn't start, but what became of me. And I used to blame myself, let my thoughts take over like a haunting, using guilted minds to convince that what all had been destroyed was my doing. Turns out that was a lie. And now walking into reality feels like opening a third eye where I can see young minds become tainted from the beginning. I take more steps closer to recovery. There's no questioning how far I've gone now. It's time to turn my life around. Put love into my future. Every tree in this forest shows me light. This right here is what living means. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for opening up and sharing your personal experience. It's courageous, and that will open doors for others. Thank you for participating today. Thank you all for joining us today to mark this really important announcement. And thank you to the media for being here. We now welcome questions.
Thank you very much, Minister. A reminder to reporters on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You are limited to one question and one follow-up. Please also ensure you come off speakerphone before asking your question. Okay, Minister, it appears that you've answered all the questions. Thank you to all the participants and to Minister for joining today.